My ex-girlfriend tried to destroy my career. She sent lies to my mentor, calling me unstable and cruel, to get me fired. But she didn't know that I had saved all the proof of her manipulation, and her insidious plan was about to backfire on her in the most spectacular way. 3 years is a long time. It's long enough to build a home, not just an apartment. It's long enough for your routines to merge, for your toothbrushes to occupy the same ceramic holder, for your separate grocery lists to become a single unified document taped to the fridge. It's long enough to adopt a cat together, a little ball of orange fluff we named Milo, who became the furry, purring center of our shared universe. Our apartment, an expensive 2-bedroom in the heart of downtown, wasn't just a place we lived. It was a testament to our success, our future. Or so I thought. I came home from work that evening to find Jenna sitting on the edge of our gray sectional sofa, the one we spent 3 weekends picking out. She was wringing her hands, her knuckles white. The TV was off, the silence in the apartment heavy and unnatural.
Max, we need to talk.
It's the most terrifying sentence in the English language, and it never precedes good news. I set my briefcase down, my stomach twisting into a knot. I sat opposite her, in the armchair, creating a physical distance that mirrored the emotional chasm I felt was about to open up.
I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. About my life, about who I am. And I think I need to be on my own for a while. I need to find myself.
She said the words like she was reading them from a script. There was a practiced quality to her sorrow, a hollow ring to the emotion in her voice. She looked at me, her eyes wide, searching for a reaction, for tears, for anger, for begging. I gave her none of it. I was hurt, of course. A 3-year relationship doesn't just evaporate without leaving a sting. But beneath the hurt, a deeper, colder understanding was already taking root. I had seen this coming, not in a conscious way, but in the subtle shifts of the last few months. The way she talked about her single friends with a wistful envy, the way she started framing her future with sentences that began with I instead of we. I just nodded slowly. Okay, I said. My voice was calm, much calmer than I felt. If that's what you feel you need to do, I understand. Jenna blinked, clearly thrown off balance by my lack of drama. This wasn't following her script. She quickly recovered, leaning forward and placing a hand on my knee. It was a gesture meant to be comforting, but it felt proprietary, like she was staking a claim.
I'm so glad you understand. I was so worried you'd be angry. I still care about you so much, Max. I was hoping we could still be friends.
And there it was. The hook. The hidden clause in the breakup contract. Friends. I knew what friends meant to Jenna in this context. It meant she wanted to keep her key to the apartment. It meant she wanted me to keep paying the lion's share of the rent on a place she suddenly couldn't afford on her own. It meant she wanted an emotional support animal in human form, available to listen to her dating woes and fix her laptop whenever it crashed. It meant she wanted all the privileges of a relationship with none of the responsibility.
I mean, nothing has to change right away, right? We can just figure things out as we go. Especially with the lease and, Milo. He's our baby.
She weaponized the cat before the dust from the breakup bomb had even settled. She was brilliant. I had to give her that. She was laying the groundwork to keep our lives so entangled that a clean break would be impossible. She thought she was leaving the door open. I knew in that moment that my only path forward was to close it, lock it, and throw away the key. Of course, I said, offering a small, tight-lipped smile. We can be friends. She relaxed, a wave of relief washing over her face. She thought she'd won. She thought I was the same old agreeable Max who would put her comfort above my own. She was about to find out that the man she was breaking up with was not the same man who would be handling the logistics of our separation. The next morning, the untangling began. While Jenna was at her part-time job at a boutique, I sat down at my computer. This wasn't about emotion anymore, it was about administration. The first email I sent was to her, with the subject line, Lease Agreement Options. Inside, I had typed out 3 clear, simple choices. Option 1, I would assume the full lease, and she would sign a quitclaim document, legally absolving her of all responsibility. I would give her 30 days, rent-free, to find a new place. Option 2. She could assume the full lease, and I would sign the same document and move out within 30 days. Option 3. We could terminate the lease together, pay the penalty fee, and both move out, splitting the cost down the middle. I finished the email with, "Please let me know which option you'd prefer to proceed with by the end of the month. Hope you're having a good day." It was polite, professional, and utterly devoid of the emotional loophole she was expecting. Her reply came an hour later. A single sentence. "Are you serious right now?" I replied immediately. "Yes. I think it's important we handle this properly to protect us both. Let me know what you decide." Next, I tackled the Milo situation. I knew she would use him as a pretext for constant, unscheduled contact. So I preempted it. I created a shared Google Calendar and sent her an invite. The event title was Milo Visitation Schedule. I proposed that she could have him every other weekend, from Friday evening to Sunday evening. I even created a detailed PDF document attached to the invite, outlining his feeding schedule, the brand of food he ate, his vet's contact information, and a list of his favorite toys. It was a document designed for a co-parent, not a casual friend. It was formal, structured, and left zero room for ambiguity or popping by to see him. Her text message this time was longer. "A visitation schedule? For our cat? What is wrong with you? He's not a legal document, Max. He's a living creature who needs his mommy." I replied, "I agree. He's a living creature who thrives on routine. I believe a clear schedule is the kindest thing for him, as it will minimize his stress and confusion. If the proposed schedule doesn't work for you, feel free to suggest alternative, consistent days." The final step, a few days later, was the digital uncoupling. I went into my Amazon Prime account and removed her as a household member. I went into Netflix, created a new password, and logged all other devices out. It was a small thing, but symbolic. The privileges of our shared life were being revoked, one by one. This time, she called me, her voice dripping with indignation.
I was in the middle of a show, and Netflix just kicked me out. And my Prime order didn't get free shipping. Did you kick me off your accounts?
"I didn't kick you off," I said calmly, sticking to the literal truth. "I just secured my accounts. We're not a couple anymore, Jenna, so it didn't make sense to share them. You can get your own Netflix account for, what, $15 a month?" The line went silent for a moment. I could hear her breathing, a sharp, angry hiss.
You're being so transactional. So cold. This isn't how friends act.
"This is exactly how friends act," I replied, my voice even. "My friends don't use my streaming accounts or expect me to co-sign their leases. Friends are friends. Partners are partners. We are no longer partners." I thought that would be the end of it. I thought my calm, logical, boundary-setting approach would force her to accept the reality of the situation and move on. I was naive. I had treated this like a simple business negotiation. But for Jenna, it was a battle for control. And when she realized her usual tactics weren't working, she decided to open up a new front, one I never saw coming. She escalated in a way that was so manipulative, so deeply personal. It told me everything I needed to know about the woman I had spent 3 years of my life with. That brings us back to that phone call with my mother. After I hung up with my mom, I sank back into the sofa, the phone feeling heavy in my hand. I had managed to calm her down, but it had taken 20 minutes of patient, logical explanation. I had to explain the lease situation, walk her through the options I had given Jenna, and gently point out that being thrown out on the street was a strange way to describe being offered a month of free rent and a clean break from a massive financial liability. By the end of the call, my mom was apologetic, but the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted by Jenna's calculated performance of a heartbroken victim. In that moment, I understood. This was no longer a breakup. This was a game of survival, and the rules had just changed. She thought she had dealt a devastating blow, but in reality, she had just woken the beast. Staring at the blank TV screen, a cold realization washed over me. This was no longer about a breakup. This wasn't about hurt feelings or who got to keep the good coffee mugs. Jenna had just demonstrated that she was willing to attack the very foundation of my life, my relationship with my own family, to get what she wanted. She wasn't just trying to keep me on the hook, she was trying to isolate me, to paint me as a villain in my own life story so that I would come crawling back to her for forgiveness. The stakes had just been raised from a simple separation to a full-blown psychological war. And the most chilling part? She had no idea that I was now fully aware of her game. She thought she'd just scored a major victory, manipulating my mother with her crocodile tears. She believed I was still the passive, conflict-avoidant man she'd dumped. She was wrong. The game had changed, and I was no longer just defending. I was planning my countermove. The question was no longer if I would fight back, but how I would dismantle her entire campaign of chaos without sinking to her level. My first step was to build a fortress of silence. I stopped responding to any text message from Jenna that wasn't directly related to the logistics of her moving out or the cat. Her daily stream of miss you texts and old photos of us were met with a digital void. Her manipulative questions about Milo, does he seem depressed? Is he looking at the door waiting for me? Were answered with a single, high-quality photo of the cat, usually purring contentedly on his favorite blanket, sent once a day at 7 p.m. sharp. No caption, no commentary. Just a picture of a perfectly happy cat. It was a calm, factual rebuttal to her emotional narrative, and I knew it was driving her insane. While she was busy trying to batter down my newly fortified walls, she launched her next offensive, Operation Jealousy. Our mutual friend Ryan suddenly became the star of her Instagram stories. It started subtly, a tagged photo at a bar, a great catching up with this one awesome caption. Then it escalated, cozy selfies with their heads pressed together, videos of them laughing at an inside joke, clearly designed for an audience of one. The pièce de résistance was a boomerang clip of her hand, nails perfectly manicured, resting on top of his on the gear shift of a car, with a 3-heart emoji caption. It was so transparent, so pathetically obvious, that it was almost insulting. She expected me to see it and explode with jealousy. I did something far more effective. I muted her. Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. Her desperate performance was playing to an empty theater. Around this time, something good started to happen. In the sterile, drama-free environment of my office, I found an unexpected ally. Her name was Claire. Claire was a project manager from another department, and we were assigned to the same high-stakes account. She was sharp, no nonsense, and had a laugh that could cut through the thickest corporate tension. Our conversation started with spreadsheets and deadlines, but soon drifted into the territory of after-work life. One afternoon, in the office kitchen, she caught me staring blankly at the coffee machine.
Long day or long life?
She asked with a wry smile. Something about her straightforward, empathetic energy made me open up. I didn't unload the whole saga, but I gave her the broad strokes. Going through a complicated breakup, I said. The kind where just friends actually means I want to retain all spousal privileges indefinitely. Claire leaned against the counter, sipping her tea, and listened. She didn't offer platitudes or easy answers. She just nodded, and when I was done, she said something that clarified everything.
So she initiated the breakup, but is now punishing you for accepting it? That's not a breakup, Max. That's a hostile takeover attempt of your emotional real estate. The only way to win is not to play.
Her words were like a splash of cold water. Hostile takeover attempt. It was the perfect description. For the first time, I felt truly seen. Our professional relationship slowly, organically, bloomed into something more. It started with grabbing lunch to talk about the project, which turned into talking about everything but the project. It led to a first date, a simple dinner at a quiet Italian place. There was no drama, no hidden agenda. It was just easy, healthy. With Claire, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't realized was missing for years. She was the calm, steady shore after a long and violent storm. I felt happy, hopeful. I started to believe I could actually build a new life, one based on mutual respect and genuine affection. I was looking forward, finally, not back. But while I was building a new life, she was plotting how to destroy my old one. Her next attack would target my reputation, but she didn't know yet that in doing so, she was signing her own professional death warrant. That first date with Claire felt like a turning point. It was a quiet promise of a future free from the toxic games I had been trapped in. But as I was taking my first steps into that new, brighter future, Jenna was preparing to launch her most vicious attack yet. She was about to find out about Claire, and her jealousy, curdled by her failures on every other front, would push her from petty emotional manipulation into the realm of professional sabotage. She believed my career was my biggest vulnerability, and she was determined to burn it to the ground. She thought she was laying a clever trap, but I was about to watch with a kind of detached horror as she meticulously built her own gallows. The fallout from her next move would be spectacular, and as you'll hear in the final update, it would end her career in our city far more effectively than I ever could. How does a person's attempt at revenge backfire so completely? She was about to give me a masterclass. The attack came via LinkedIn. It was a cowardly, insidious move, leveraging professional networks to spread personal poison. Jenna worked in the same broad industry as me, marketing. We had dozens, if not hundreds, of mutual connections. She couldn't publicly post slander, so she opted for the digital equivalent of a whispering campaign. It was my mentor, a senior director at another firm named David, who alerted me. He forwarded me an email with a screenshot of a LinkedIn message from Jenna. The subject was, "Checking in, a bit concerned." The message was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive character assassination. It read, "Hi David, hope you're well. I'm not sure if you've heard, but Max and I recently separated. It's all been very difficult, and honestly, I'm a little worried about him. He's become incredibly cold and volatile, and frankly making some really rash decisions. I know he values your mentorship, and I just felt a responsibility to let you know he might not be in the best headspace right now. I'd hate for his work to suffer because of this personal turmoil." My blood ran cold. She was framing her concern as professional courtesy. She was painting me as unstable, a liability to one of my most important professional contacts. This wasn't just about hurting me, it was about destroying my credibility, the one thing a professional can't afford to lose. I was about to fire off an angry, defensive reply when my phone buzzed again. It was Claire. I sent her the screenshot without a word. Her response came a minute later.
Don't reply. Not yet. Let's think. She's overplayed her hand. She thinks she's being subtle, but this is the digital equivalent of screaming, "He's crazy!" in a crowded room. It makes her look unhinged, not you. We can use this.
Claire was right. An emotional denial would only validate the claim that I was volatile. The correct response had to be calm, professional, and surgically precise. That evening, she came over, and we drafted a response together. It was sent from my email, not LinkedIn, to David. "Hi David," it read. "Thank you for sending this over to me. I'm disappointed to see Jenna is involving our professional network in our private separation. To be transparent, I ended our financial and living arrangement after she ended our relationship, and it seems she has not taken it well. I can assure you that my personal life is not impacting my professional judgment or my commitment to my work. My performance on the Acme account should speak for itself. I appreciate your continued support." It was perfect. It was factual. It didn't engage with the emotional bait, and it subtly reframed the situation. She was the one being unprofessional, not me. What Jenna didn't count on was that David wasn't the only person she'd messaged. Over the next 48 hours, I learned she had sent similar messages to at least 5 other mutual contacts. The strategy backfired spectacularly. One of the recipients was a woman who had briefly managed Jenna years ago and texted me saying, "Classic Jenna drama. Don't worry, no one is taking this seriously." Jenna wasn't destroying my reputation. She was incinerating her own, one concerned message at a time. The final nail in her coffin came from an unexpected source. Ryan. He called me a week later, sounding awkward and confused.
"Hey man, got a weird question. I think Jenna is telling people we're dating, and she's been saying some really wild stuff about you, that you kicked her out and you're losing it. I don't know, it just feels off."
This was my chance to end this. I didn't get angry at Ryan. He was just another pawn in her game. "Ryan," I said, my voice steady, "we can grab a beer if you want, and I'll show you the entire paper trail. The emails about the lease options, the formal schedule for the cat, everything. You're being used as a prop to try and make me jealous. It's not working, but it's not fair to you." We met that night. I laid my phone on the table and showed him everything. The email offering her a month of free rent, her texts demanding to FaceTime the cat, the message she sent to my mentor. He scrolled through it all, his face growing paler with each new piece of evidence. He looked up from the phone, his expression a mixture of embarrassment and anger.
Wow, I'm an idiot. She told me you just snapped and went crazy on her. This is something else entirely. She's been playing me this whole time.
He left our meeting and, from what I heard later, went directly to end things with Jenna. Her jealousy ploy had not only failed to provoke me, but it had also cost her the very person she was using as bait. The end of the month arrived. It was the deadline I had given her to make a decision about the lease. Cornered, with all her other manipulation tactics having failed, she was out of options. She sent me a short, defeated text. "Fine, I'll sign the papers. Let me know when I can get my stuff." The day she moved out was anticlimactic. There was no shouting match, no dramatic final confrontation. She brought her dad and his truck. I packed all her belongings neatly into boxes and left them stacked by the door. I stayed in my bedroom with Milo, listening to the sounds of my old life being taped up and carried away. Within 2 hours, she was gone. The only thing she said to me as she left was, "I hope you're happy." "I am," I replied, and for the first time in a long time, it was the absolute truth. The moment the door clicked shut, a profound sense of peace settled over the apartment. The air felt lighter. I walked over to the door, slid the deadbolt across, and engaged the chain. It was finally over. Or so I thought. The real consequences of her actions were still waiting to fully unfold. So, before we get to the update, it's time for the final verdict. Based on everything you've heard so far, who was in the wrong here? Was I the cold, transactional villain Jenna painted me as? Or was I simply a man defending himself from a campaign of manipulation? Cast your vote in the comments. Now, let's see what happened next. This story is just wild, isn't it? Let me know in the comments, what would you have done in this situation? And if you enjoy stories with satisfying endings, show your support by hitting that like and subscribe button. It truly helps the channel grow. Now, for the part you've all been waiting for, the final update. The final update. The first month after Jenna moved out was one of profound peace. Claire and I started spending more and more time together, building something real and solid in the space cleared out by the chaos. The apartment, once a battleground, became a sanctuary. Milo, who had never truly warmed to Jenna's frantic energy, blossomed. He took to Claire instantly, often curling up on her lap while she worked on her laptop from the sofa, purring like a tiny engine. It was a picture of domestic tranquility I had always wanted but never quite had with Jenna. About 6 weeks after what I now call the great uncoupling, I ran into a former colleague at a coffee shop. After some small talk, he leaned in conspiratorially. "Hey, did you hear what happened with Jenna?" he asked. I shook my head. "She had a fantastic job offer," he went on. "A big step up with a major firm downtown. Had it in the bag. Then, poof, they rescinded the offer last week. Word is, during their due diligence, they spoke to a few people in the industry and heard she had a reputation for being unprofessional and creating drama. Sound familiar?" I just sipped my coffee, a slow smile spreading across my face. Her LinkedIn sabotage, the very weapon she had tried to use against me, had created a digital trail of her own instability. She hadn't just shot herself in the foot. She had nuked her entire professional reputation in our city. The social fallout was just as complete. The friends she had tried to poison against me had either seen the truth for themselves or heard the story from Ryan, who made no secret of how he'd been used. She was isolated, having burned every bridge in her desperate attempt to trap me on her burning island. Last I heard, she couldn't afford to live downtown anymore and had moved back in with her parents in the suburbs, a far cry from the independent finding myself journey she had so dramatically announced. As for me, it's now a year later. Claire moved in 6 months ago. We signed a new lease in both our names, a true partnership. We even adopted a second cat, a little gray rescue named Olive, to keep Milo company. My relationship with my mom is stronger than ever. She often jokes that she needs to run a Claire check on any new information she hears, having learned her lesson about believing one side of a dramatic story. Sometimes, late at night, when Claire is asleep and the cats are curled up at the foot of the bed, I think about what I learned. I learned that no is a complete sentence. I learned that boundaries aren't cruel. They are the kindest way to protect your peace. I learned that when someone shows you who they are through their actions, you must believe them, no matter how much their words try to convince you otherwise. Jenna wanted me to be her safety net, but I chose to be my own foundation. And on that foundation, I finally built a life that is genuinely, peacefully, and completely my own.